go through everything you've just shared, what I hear when I bring up these subjects is that there's oppression going on. And so when you see black on black crime, or if you see poverty, or you see the broken, black family statistics, those are things that are the responsibility of white people. Now, I disagree
No,
with that strongly, but that is what is
but
being
let
told.
me supply you some evidence to refute that. Okay, if the legacy of racism and discrimination were responsible, then black families didn't decline until the 60s. In between 1930 and 1940, during the years of the Depression, when the unemployment rate of the whole population is 25%, it was 40% the black community. Our marriage rate was higher than any other group in the country. And so if racism, and when racism was an official policy of these cities, our community did not commit crimes. Elderly people in the 1930s could walk in their community without fear of their grandchildren. And so what you are talking about is a recent phenomenon, because up until 1962, 85% of all black families had a man and a woman raising children. We did not have the out of wedlock births. We did not have the incarceration rates. The incarceration rates did not soar until the 60s of the poverty programs. So there are just facts that refute the fact that somehow the problems that we face today are related to the legacy of slavery. It's just not patently untrue based upon the facts and data.
So again, I totally agree with what you're saying. And I think what we're facing is a real problem where people don't want to believe the truth. I saw in the hearing for reparations when you had Louis Gohmert outlining how it was the Democrats repeatedly supporting slavery and refusing to vote for anything that would mean, freedom or emancipation for black people. And this is time after time, vote after vote, that this is being taken, and that some of the most prominent segregationists and people who were open members of the KKK, they were also elected Democrats. And at the end, he basically took a little pause, and a black person in the room screams out right in the hearing, "You lie." And he says, actually, these are based on facts. These are the true things I'm stating here. This is a case of people refusing to believe the truth. Isn't that accurate?
It really is, but I think those of us who support the truth, we've got to really use different messengers to communicate that truth. That's why what the Woodson Center does is that we represent low-income people of all racial and ethnic groups around the country. And we work with ex-gang members, and we work with ex-prostitutes. God has delivered through redemption people from all sorts of challenges, and for them, the greatest challenge they face is overcoming brokenness. Now, when you give people who are black and brown, who have undergone this journey from sin to redemption, and you ask them whether racism was responsible for their wayward life, they will tell you no. But we have got to allow these people to make the case against reparations, as opposed to scholars doing this. This is what I point to all the time. When John the Baptist sent his servants to Jesus and said, "Are you the one, or shall we seek another?" Jesus didn't pull out his resume. He healed in their presence and say, "Go tell them what you saw." We've got to do the same thing when we're combating those who are trying to mislead the country on racism. Let's go to some people who are low-income blacks who have been redeemed and transformed. Ask 20 of them whether or not their problems were because of racism or because of bad choices and value challenges that they had.
Well, and so that's an excellent
point. We really need a different messenger.
I agree. I think we need different messengers, but we also, I think, when we look at what Democrats are doing to black people at the inner cities across the country, run exclusively by Democrats for decades, and there's just this persistent insistence on, well, Democrats care about race. Democrats they're the only ones who aren't racist. Democrats care about black people. that what Democrats are successful in doing is spreading out the gains of the civil rights movement, spreading those out to other groups that don't have any right to even claim civil rights victory. So, LGBTQ, they use the same language as what was used during the civil rights era, but there are no civil rights that they're being denied because they, of their chosen sexual behaviors. And this is it's an allegiance issue. I find it insulting that Democrats are so insistent that I can't survive without their help, but they haven't helped anybody.
No, they really haven't. And in fact, let's talk about voter suppression. The greatest voter suppression is apathy. In cities run by Democrats like Washington, D.C., and Newark and Trenton, in the last mayor's race here where I live in Washington, D.C., the voter turnout in the mayor's race in low-income black neighborhoods was 6%. And this is true throughout the country because a lot of those blacks feel as if there's no reason to vote because Democrats, most of the failures, most of the incarceration rates, most of the failures of families are occurring in cities run by black Democrats. And that's why what the Woodson Center has done is that we are mobilizing the people who are directly suffering the problem to speak for themselves. That's why we're raising funds to do videos. We have a new book out. It's called Voices from the Lessons from the Least of These. And in it, we chronicle all of the successes that low-income people, black and brown and low-income white, how they have achieved against the odds, not because they've been held back by race, it's because they have been blessed by grace. And that grace has come as a consequence of their own willingness to embrace character redemption and transformation.
Absolutely. So, and I want to pivot before we're out of time. I want to move over to you have an opinion piece over at thehill.com about the Oberlin case. And this is the case of this college that really they overstepped their bounds and now they're being made to pay. I'm so happy to see this ruling. It's a victory for justice, but the title of your piece is Oberlin case is a victory for justice, though not for black youths portrayed as victims. What are you talking about here?
Well, the Oberlin case is, a young black man, a student stole some wine and he was caught by one of the attendants at the store. And they followed him outside, and two of the black students' friends beat up the man, and he was admitted to that. And the students organized a protest and said, even though the young black man stole some wine, they said he was profiled racially, and they organized months and years of protest and boycott, almost ruined his business. And so the business filed suit against them and won a huge judgment, $44 million judgment against the Oberlin College because they encouraged the students. And what I wrote in the Hill column was the other people who lost were the black students, because we are raising a whole generation of black students who believe that their future is defined by what white people have done to them, and therefore they have become exempt from any personal responsibility. The second message is because they have been the victims of what they call institutional racism, they're therefore owed something to compensate for this disadvantage. So you really are raising a whole generation of black students who define their life by what somebody else does, and creating a whole group of victims. Who is going to want to hire a student who's going to come into the company, and the first thing they want to look for is evidence of disadvantages and racism? Who wants to hire people like that? So I feel sorry for those students, that those parents paid $70,000 to go to Oberlin so they can learn to be a professional victim.
And the key here, because, Bob, we have kids in college right now. And so it's when you say 70 grand a year, that is a lot of money for a college education. You can go to a state school for much less than that, and your kid can graduate with a degree in a field that they can actually get a job in. and really not nearly as much student debt, $70,000 a year. So that's name ID, that's the prestige of Oberlin College, but they're not giving a product that parents should want to pay for, are they?
No, they really aren't. They're really disadvantaging those parents, but also creating false expectations for the children. I mean, they're going to have to go out and compete. And so that is so self-destructive to help students. For 3 years, they maintain this attack on this business. So for 3 years, black students at Oberlin have been using all their energies as a victim, defining themselves as a victim. And somehow, and to me, they're the other victim here, a real victim of the kind of victim, the kind of outrage that they're learning. And the college endorsed it and supported it.
So in the end, it's really about now parents who have kids at Oberlin saying, look, you know, we're either not sending them back, or we're not going to donate to the endowment fund, or there has to be some kind of backlash from the parents to kind of help solidify what this ruling has showed them, which is that they're way out of line for their activities.
I would like to see black parents file suit also against Oberlin for misdirecting their children to believe that their biggest problem is white racism. That would be an interesting suit, wouldn't it?
You know what, Bob? It would also be something else for them to be engaged in, which would maybe stop them from continuing their wrong activities. Because right now, I think they're probably hoping that they can appeal or they can somehow get away from this. But the ruling itself is a smack in the face.
I don't think they're going to get away from this.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to get away from this. I mean, the case is so blatant. And these students, again, what we're trying to convey to students is that people are motivated to change when they see victories that are possible, not injuries to be avoided. There were 20 blacks who were born slaves who died millionaires. But our students don't know that.
Well, they need to. They need to know that.
When we were in the grip of segregation, we started our own railroad when 1,000 blacks were fired. There's so many stories of how people have triumphed against the odds that our children are missing.
Yeah.
And this is what they need.
It's absolutely, you're absolutely right. Bob, thank you so much. That's the music. We're at the end of the segment. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope to speak to you again soon. Bob Woodson, founder of the Woodson Institute. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
This is Uncommon Moments. Here's former Super Bowl winning NFL coach Tony Dungy and his wife Lauren sharing from their book Uncommon Marriage.
Sometimes I get too focused on the what ifs, and Lauren points out that if I worry myself to death about things, I might end up doing nothing.
My and Tony's philosophy about things still give great balance to our marriage. We see that some of our different perspectives come from our parents. That's one reason God brought us together, and we make good decisions when we work through things as a team.
Lauren is like her mom. Both are very strong women with a great deal of faith in God. And that's one thing we as husbands can learn about our wives. We can see strength in areas where we might need help. Remember that differences are positives in a marriage.
Tony and Lauren Dungy, authors of Uncommon Marriage, learning about lasting love and overcoming life's obstacles together. Discover more at CoachDungy.com.
My heroin addiction had me living in filth. The sole reason I got up in the morning was to get high. But at Teen Challenge, I broke free from the drugs. Now I have goals and dreams again, and that is an awesome feeling.
If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, Adult to Teen Challenge can help. There are centers across the country, and you can find the one nearest you at 855-END-ADDICTION or at TeenChallengeUSA.com. This is Urban Family Talk.
The Bible records that Jesus calls out Satan.
Yeah.
Because you can see this demonic attack on the reason that Jesus Christ was sent.
Yeah.
He came here to die for us, to be the propitiation for us.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot do anything against the truth, only for it.
Airing the Addisons, weekday mornings 6 to 8 Central on Urban Family Talk.
I'm Hank Weinblum, and word lovers of the world, unite. It's time for your word of the week.
The socialists have done in Venezuela all of the same things that socialists, communists, totalitarians have done everywhere.
The concept of socialism dates to the Industrial Revolution, meaning resources are owned by the government instead of rich people. Lenin and Trotsky thought socialism was a step on the road to communism. India calls itself a socialist nation, so does Portugal. Venezuela does not. Many European nations have socialist policies. America has some socialists.
I believe in a democratic socialism.
To some, it's practically a dirty word.
He said elsewhere in that speech that socialism is for compassion, justice, and love. Well, I don't know what nation on earth socialism has ever achieved those objectives.
But if you collect Social Security or Medicare, you're a little bit socialist. With your word of the week, Hank Weinblum, Fox News.
You can watch a live stream of the show on Facebook or YouTube at Stacy on the Right. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
The president has been very clear on this, is that he wants to maintain the integrity of the system, make sure that we enforce the rule of law, and address this crisis that we have on the southwest border. So one of the things that we're doing is we're making sure that we're looking at this from a simplistic viewpoint. If you are here illegally in violation of federal immigration law, if you've received due process, there should be consequences, including families. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we apply the law and we enforce the law across the board. We're not going to exempt a certain demographic. We need to make sure that everybody that has been here in violation of the law has consequences. Generally, that's correct. We have a demographic that has had an enormous amount of due process. They've had access to attorneys. They've had access to interpreters. They've received a final order of removal from a judge. We've even sent them letters saying, you've received an order. Come to ICE. We'll work with you. We'll give you 30 days to get your affairs in order, and we'll help you return you to your country. Those have been ignored. Those people in those categories, over 90% haven't showed up, and they've ignored the order. What I'm trying to tell them, Steve, real quickly is, look, as ICE, I don't want to come to your door. I don't want to come to your home. I don't want to come to your workplace. What I'm asking these individuals that have these final orders, come to ICE, work with us in a humane, dignified manner to return you to your country of origin as it's been ordered. That's what I hope we can do here.
Okay, so listen. And welcome back to the show. Thanks for making your home at American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. I have been so impressed with the and there are just a few of them who are in leadership at U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, Department of Homeland Security. When they come out and they come on these shows and they're talking, you just get the real impression. You know, these are real people. They're doing a job and they're not ashamed of it. They're not upset by it. They have a job to do and they want to do it well. They want cooperation, as most law enforcement wants. I mean, my father's in law enforcement, and there's nothing worse than encountering someone who is not going to cooperate with you, and you have a determination that you're going to do your job, and so you know that there's going to be a battle of wills, and you, as the person in law enforcement, know that you're going to win that battle of wills because you have a duty to discharge the service that you're providing, whether it's protecting and serving or keeping the peace or responding to a 911 call. And so this is no different. And I don't understand why we have this it's kind of prevalent in this country where we have people thinking of immigrations and customs enforcement as some kind of, these are horrible people, but you're fine when you dial 911, you expect the police to come. It's the same kind of attitude we see with Black Lives Matter hating the U.S. police departments across the country. They're fine hating them until they've been assaulted or there's somebody kicking in their back door. Then they're dialing 911 and they expect the police to show up, and they don't expect the police to show up and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're with Black Lives Matter. You're on your own. We don't help people who hate us." No, they expect them to do their duty regardless of their personal feelings. And that's what's happening here. And so the gentleman you just heard speaking there is Acting ICE Director Mark Morgan. And he was speaking on Fox and Friends about how the president has been very, very clear that he wants to maintain integrity in the system, making sure that we enforce the rule of law and address the crisis that we have on the southwest border. It's sad, first of all, because what happens is because we have a broken system at the southern border, and because we have people pouring in, and because the people who are pouring in are so very, the people who are pouring in are bent, they are determined, they are focused on coming into America and living here and working, regardless of their status. They understand that if they are to go through the legal, lawful process of immigration, it costs tens of thousands of dollars and it will take 10 to 12 years. And they want to work now. They have family here now. And this entire chain of events goes back to Ronald Reagan and the amnesty that he signed. And I want to be clear here because I like Ronald Reagan just like any other Republican. But that was the mistake he made. If you have to point to anything he did that lasts on as a legacy that's not something we want to replicate, it's that signing that amnesty. Because that let the first 9 million illegal aliens in. It was 3 million plus their family members through chain migration. 9 million illegal aliens became Americans. And that's the root of the problem we have now, because those people want their extended family here. And their extended family are now here. And the extended family of those extended family are now here. Do you see the system? It incentivized more illegal immigration, that amnesty did. So I want to open up the phone lines. I have so much more for you today. We have a jam-packed program planned for you. And I was like zombied out because I had so much stuff to do this morning. But I'm fired up because, again, live behind the mic with you at our home at American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. Call lines are open at 866-963-2037, 866-963-2037. We have John in Missouri on the phone. He just called in. Hey, John, thanks for calling the show. I'm not sure if he's ready, if we can pull him over just yet, but as soon as we're able to, we'll go to him. So we also have, again, on the immigration front. Oh, okay. Well, all right. John in Missouri, thank you so much for calling in today. I'm not hearing him. I'm not sure if that's just me or what the deal is here, but John, can you... So maybe we don't have him. I'm not hearing anything. So the additional story that I teased a little bit earlier is about Border Patrol Chief Carla Provost. She's talking about family units from 52 countries that have illegally crossed the border. Now, this is, again, if we incentivize it, it's incentivized, right? If it's incentivized, that means that it gets to a place where you can't stop it. Smugglers falsely advertise a safe journey to the border, misleading families that anyone who arrives with a child will not be deported under current U.S. policies, which is not true. That's absolutely not true. Smugglers primarily target the Northern Triangle. Family units from 52 countries have illegally crossed the southern border so far this year. So they're already in the country from 52 different places. In just 2 weeks, more than 740 individuals from African nations, primarily family units, have been apprehended in the Del Rio sector alone, compared to only 108 who crossed the southern border in the first 8 months of the fiscal year. Families from countries like Brazil, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Cuba, Peru, Romania, Vietnam. I mean, can you believe the far-flung nature of these countries? Vietnam are taking the same pathways through America and South America and Mexico to take advantage of the gaps in our system. Unbelievable. You had a 4-month-old baby from Romania and his father among the migrants crossing into the U.S. on the southern border in February of 2018. This is crazy pants. It has to stop. So now I think we may be able to go over to the phones here. John in Missouri, thank you for calling the show.
Yes. I'm calling because first we're going to talk about black-on-black crime. I hear that all the time. But yet it's still suspicious, say, that it's more white people killing one another than black people. Now, as for the reparation, there's not enough money that can pay for the atrocity that have been did to dark people all over the planet, and it's still going on. So I'm not interested in your reparation. But you don't have no problem giving money to Jew people who do not fit the description in the Bible.
Okay, but that's not the issue here. Jewish people who receive reparations, that's not the issue here. We're talking about the black reparations that are never going to happen. Yeah, John, that is exactly what we're talking about.
I don't want it. But you don't have no problem giving the job.
This isn't, and is this, but this is about,
You can't tell me.
okay, I can tell you. So we're going to go ahead and mute you because you can't filibuster me on my own show because I get to tell the producer or, the call screener to mute you. And if you can calm down a little bit, we can have a conversation, but you cannot filibuster. You cannot just run your mouth nonstop and repeat yourself over and over again. It's a conversation. It's a back and forth. So to address your first point, reparations are never going to happen. So the conversation that we're having is a total waste of time, but Democrats want to have that conversation because they can't provide any proof that their policies will help any of their constituents or their base. They don't have any policies that will help any Americans, regardless of what their ethnic background is. Now, as far as you bringing up Jewish people, that already happened. And since I'm not a magic wand person, I don't have a unicorn factory in the back of this house here someplace, I can't roll time back like they do in sci-fi movies. I can't change what happened with Jewish people. And that's not the issue here. The issue is not what happened to Jewish people. It's the lies that Democrats are currently peddling that they're actually going to give reparations to blacks. Now, do you have a response to that?
Look, if you give one people, you set up opponent people in a land, you give them millions and millions of taxpayer dollars, you giving money to be all we ask for one group. Give us some land, set us up like you do the Jews. Or stop the damn taxes on our ass for a while.
Okay, all right. So the problem that he's having is that he's saying what happened with Jewish people should automatically happen with black people. But Jewish people went for reparations and got it done when the victims of what happened to them were actually still alive. So we're talking about slavery, which was over a very long time ago. And there aren't any current people who were slaves alive right now to receive the reparations. And reparations go to the victims, not the victims' descendants. So it's a complex conversation, but if you're in your feelings and you're allowing that to drive the conversation instead of logic, then it becomes much, much more difficult to actually have the conversation. Victoria in Texas, thank you for calling the show.
Hi.
Hello.
Yes, I had a few things to say. And, that the gentleman that just spoke, I really got to pray for him because I've got some in-laws. I've got a mixed family. I married into a very long history of a black family, and I was the first white. So I understand. I've had several conversations, and the problem is the only thing I can get out of them is they just want whites to pay. So, I got to pray for their bitterness and hope that God unveils their eyes. And even the ones that are Christians, and that's another subject about the black churches, how can anyone who is a Christian, get on a Democratic ticket, because it's everything that God doesn't stand for.
That's true.
And so, that really boggles my mind. But, and you had a previous caller who talked about the colleges. Well, I'll tell you, I lived in Dallas for many years, and my grandchildren went to Dallas schools. I'm telling you, all those schools, these are little kids. They're getting them when they're in kindergarten and pre-K. They're teaching them already that white is bad, that Donald Trump and the Republican Party is bad. We moved out of Dallas, and we are out in a way south of Dallas now. But I've had to educate my kids. They're now 12 and 10, but I have to sit them down in front of the news channel and I had to let them hear and make choices of what they believed in and what they didn't. Well, they reversed because they were taught, it was ingrained in their mind that the only way to go was Democrat because they were part black. And, I had to educate these kids, which they are totally good now, and they know the difference between right and wrong. I went to El Paso 3 weeks ago. When I came back on the plane, when I was coming back to Dallas, 75% of the plane were illegal immigrants. I got pictures. They were in a totally separate line. They didn't have to go through the check. They didn't have to take their shoes off. They had no identification. They had 2 pieces of paper and whatever card they came with from their country. They went right through. They didn't have to go through security. And, of course, they didn't pay for those tickets. 75% of the plane was illegal immigrants that we paid for to send them to Dallas. A week later, I go back to El Paso. I'm coming back. Now, this time it's only like 25% of the plane, but it's still the same thing. And they're just rushing these people to get them out and through somewhere, so that they can get somewhere and somebody can take care of them. Now, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that if you've got $15 and you've got mouths to feed that cost $100, you can't do that. And it's not. Look, I fed every one of those little kids. I had food, and I fed them in that airport. I gave them food and stuff. It's not that I don't love those kids. My heart went out to those kids. But number one, there was a gentleman sitting there next to me with a little boy. I just know it wasn't his. The little boy was very sick, a deep, deep cough. And the gentleman wasn't holding him, wasn't calling him, or anything. And, first of all, I think what parent could send your child off with somebody that they don't know, number one, or what's going to happen to them. But, the whole thing just really bothers me. And like I said, my heart went out to them. I love them. I love all races.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you. I'm sorry, Victoria. Thank you so much for calling and for sharing that, especially about the flights. It's kind of unbelievable that this is what's happening. If you're hanging around, stay with us. I will take calls after the break. If you're leaving us now, God bless from the heartland. It's been a pleasure to be with you today on American Family Radio. Stacy Washington.
The sexual revolution is falsely promised to satisfy the human heart.
God has a better way. If we follow God's prescription.
Dr. Michael Brown offers hope for those trapped in the downward spiral of sexual immorality. The Freedom of Sexual Purity is a powerful DVD from the AFA Cultural Institute. Get your copy today at afastore.net.
Truth, wisdom, empowerment. Urban Family Talk, a ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Peters. A U.S. Supreme Court decision should settle the matter of crosses on public property, and as Charlie Butts reports, the ruling will reinforce the First Amendment.
The court, by a 7-2 vote, upheld the constitutionality of the Bladensburg Veterans Cross in Maryland, which was constructed by the American Legion nearly a century ago to honor World War I soldiers who paid the ultimate price for freedom. But attorney Mike Berry of First Liberty Institute tells AFN the case likely impacts others.
I think so, at least in terms of seeing activist groups using the Establishment Clause as a sort of weapon to target, veterans memorials, Ten Commandments displays, public prayer, and that kind of stuff.
So, atheist and humanist groups are forewarned by the decision. But what about Arlington National Cemetery, where over 14,000 soldiers are buried?
Anybody who reads this decision should come to the conclusion that Arlington Cemetery is off limits. That any legal attacks from this point forward that somebody tries to launch against some of the veterans memorials that happen to be shaped in the shape of crosses in Arlington Cemetery, those lawsuits are going to lose now.
The decision means atheists, agnostics, and humanists need to understand Christianity in the public arena is indeed protected by the First Amendment. I'm Charlie Butts.
A national defense analyst believes that the United States could target the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps as a response to the shooting down of a U.S. drone by the Iranian regime. Chad Groening has more.
When President Trump was asked about a response to the attack, he said, quote, "You'll soon find out." The United States Central Command says the downing of the surveillance drone by an Iranian surface-to-air missile took place in international airspace over the Strait of Hormuz early Thursday and was an unprovoked attack. This latest incident comes amid heightened tensions between Iran and the U.S. over Tehran's collapsing nuclear deal with world powers. Bob McGinnis is a senior fellow for national security at the Family Research Council and author of Alliance of Evil.
There are already pre-chambered responses. Clearly, the president wants to avoid direct confrontation. He wants to avoid war. But at some point, after 40 years of tit for tat and their types of activities, you probably are going to have to do something. But we'll have to wait and see what that translates into.
McGinnis believes the response will be the targeting of a hostile aircraft or a hostile ship.
Something that is a military asset, and it could be a variety of things. They have plenty of small vessels. They have plenty of mines, plenty of rockets. The IRGC is the conduit by which most of these attacks take place, so we would probably target them.
I'm Chad Groening.
A black man at the center of a Phoenix police video is calling for the firing of the officers involved. More from Tanya J. Powers.
Trayvon Ames and his pregnant fiancée, Aisha Harper, told the Phoenix City Council they want to see the officers who pointed guns and cursed at them fired. Video of last month's encounter between Ames, Harper, and the officers has gone viral. It started when workers at a dollar store told police Ames shoplifted. This is audio of a portion of that incident captured on video by a bystander.
Break your feet. When I tell you to do something, you do it. I'm sorry. I'm just on the side. You're not complying with me. Yes, I am. When I tell you to do something, you do it. I am.
Ames and Harper say their 4-year-old daughter took a doll from the store without their knowledge. No charges have been filed. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
Alabama's controversial former Chief Justice could be planning another run for the U.S. Senate.
Roy Moore was the Alabama Chief Justice removed from office for refusing to remove a Ten Commandments monument from the state Supreme Court, but he drew widespread criticism from Republicans in 2017 when women accused him of sexual misconduct while he was running for the U.S. Senate. He lost that race to Democrat Doug Jones. President Trump was not a supporter of Moore, and the president is reportedly urging him not to run for Alabama's other Senate seat next year. Moore could announce plans for a campaign today. Eben Brown, Fox News.
Heavy rains have led to landslides and flooded roads in Ohio. In central Ohio, high water forced closure of numerous roads in Columbus and part of Interstate 71 near Grove City. For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Stand by. The B-Sack Radio Show spotlights Christian rap artists.
But never try to put me on the pedestal. The Lord is working on me. I'm getting better still.
Hear in-depth interviews and news about upcoming releases.
What's your motivation? Jesus, he's a motivation.
B-Sack is the Biblically Sound Artist Coalition. Don't miss the B-Sack Radio Show. Saturdays from 10 a.m. to noon Central on Urban Family Talk. She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
USMCA, Canada, Mexico, U.S., NAFTA 2.0. That's a terrific trade deal helping throughout our economy. In fact, in the shorter run, next few years, it's more important than China trade. I mean, USMCA passage in the House and Senate is probably going to add 0.5% per year for GDP.
Now, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that to brag, because you know what? I don't have to brag. I don't have to, believe it or not. I'm doing that to say that that's the kind of thinking our country needs. We need that thinking. We have the opposite thinking. We have losers. We have losers. We have people that don't have it. We have people that are morally corrupt. We have people that are selling this country down the drain.
And now, Stacy Washington.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. So what are we doing? Well, we have some angry people calling into the call queue. But that's okay. It's all right. You can have your feelings. Welcome to the show. This hour, we're going to be talking to Bridget Van Means. Well, first of all, she's my friend, and she's amazing. She's a visionary. It's hard to describe her. She's so fantastic. Bridget Van Means. She's a vision leader and president of Thrive St. Louis, which is a branded pregnancy resource center. And really the driver in pro-life action here in the Missouri area, the entire state of Missouri. And now they've branched out and their centers are across the country, probably in an area near you, since we're in 35 states across the country on this program. So first off, I want to make sure you know she's going to be with us in a few short minutes for the next segment to discuss what's going on with the Planned Parenthood here in Missouri. But right now I want to go back to the phones and chat with, we have some people who want to get in here and have conversation about all this stuff that's going on. Nancy in Texas, thanks for holding over. What's your comment?
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I wanted to mention something a young Marine advised, who's been all over in all these trouble spots. He said, he's like an amateur historian, and he said Texas used to be part of Mexico, and we might think about investing in buy 50 miles on the other side of the river and set up a place where things can be sorted out outside of the United States, where we would actually control activity on the other side of the river by buying some real estate.
So you know what, Nancy? Because we had earlier this week on the program, we had a guest on from the Heritage Foundation. I think it might have been Hans von Spakovsky. No, it was someone from the Federalist who came on and joined us and talked about how at one point, more than one point in our history, we've had actual actions going on south of the border, military actions where American troops, now, admittedly, this is not in the modern era. It was John Davidson, senior correspondent at the Federalist, was talking about the border's volatile history and that we had actually sent troops south of the border into Mexico, and we were operating in Mexico with American troops to put down a resistance. Back then it was Pancho Villa, but the idea is the same. And so I agree with that. I think, buying some land over there, fine. I don't think Mexico would sell it to us. Or just sending our troops down there, whether they want us to or not, just sending our troops in as far enough into the territory to push back the invasion, to turn the people around so they can't put their toes on American soil and activate these ridiculous, silly laws that we have. I think you're right. Nancy, thanks for calling the show today. Let's go to Bart in Texas. Hey, Bart, thanks for calling the show.
Sure appreciate your show and listen to you. I need your opinion on something. Of course, I think a few days ago you mentioned our esteemed Ilhan Omar, and I just fume every time I hear that name. But I've contacted both my senators here in Texas and my congressmen to ask them what they can do within the normal processes to remove her at least from office, if not from the country. Is there anything else I can do, Stacy, as a law-abiding, within the bounds of what I can do to get that message out, or to make that happen?
So I think there's somebody who's running against her the next time she's up for re-election. I think there's some people who've put together a group on that. I'll have to try to see where, because I read that in a story on one of the news aggregators that I go to every day. A couple of weeks ago, they were talking about how there's a group of people who live in her district who are unhappy with her representation, and they want to run someone against her when she's next up. So the thing to do would be to financially support them, a donation of any kind, and then sharing their information on social media to make sure that people know that they're out there. And as far as the rest of it, obviously, we just have to keep praying that the people in Brooklyn who are already unhappy with her, polls show they're unhappy with her leadership, that they would choose someone else that's not as radical. It's never going to be someone we like. It's a heavily Democratic district, but it could at least be someone who behaves like an American, right? So we'll have to see what happens with that. But thank you, Bart, for calling the show and for listening and tuning in. And that's a great question. And then Doug in Alabama. If you want to join us, 866-963-2037, 866-963-2037. Hey, Doug. Thanks for calling the show.
Hey, how's it going? First time listener, first time caller, driving across the country, found you on the dial.
Oh, thank you.
Very interesting show. Yeah, no worries. I love listening to talk radio. If they get all the mindsets of America. And the something you just mentioned a minute ago about the congresswoman from Brooklyn. She represents that community. At the end of the day, they elected her as their representative. We may not like her in other parts of the country, but her tactics but she is who those people have deemed worthy to represent them in Congress.
But Doug, the polls don't show them being very happy with her. And I switched those up. So the caller was talking about Ilhan Omar from, I guess, Minnesota, and I started talking about AOC, who's from Brooklyn. But now I think Ilhan Omar's constituents actually like her, but AOC's constituents are not very happy with her. The polls show that they don't really like her leadership right now. So I want to kind of clear that up. But yeah, you're right. The people send the representative that closest mirrors their own beliefs.
And I think we run into trouble when we think that other parts of the country should feel like we do. We all have different perspectives and different worldviews.
Yeah, but we're all Americans, right?
Right, but in the Christian perspective, though, the good Lord gave us free will.
The good what?
Choose. The good Lord gave us free will.
So you're not a Christian then, and you feel it's appropriate to mock Christianity. Is that it?
Oh, it's not a mock. It's not at all. It's not. I was definitely raised Christian. There is believe me. I completely understand the Judeo-Christian perspective.
But you don't believe in it.
Not only have I studied it, I was in it. Oh no, I personally, faith is a gift I've yet to believe. I believe there is a Judeo-Christian perspective worldview. There's a way that the Western world has developed its morality, its ethics, its way of conducting business through 2,000 years of trial and error with the Roman Catholic Church. So we have history of what works and what doesn't work. So in pockets of this country, there are folks who believe that the world should think like they do.
Well, it's not pockets. Liberals believe that too. New Yorkers believe that too. I've been all over the country. I've been all over the world. People do want other people to believe the way that they believe. So it's not just Judeo-Christians or Christians who think that other people should adopt our viewpoint. Everyone thinks that. That's why people fight over politics and do the things that they do.
Hence the dilemma.
Yeah.
When in this country, what we should be doing, which our founders intended, if you're a fundamentalist, our founders intended that our representatives represent us.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But the founders left us a republic, a representative republic, and he said, if you can keep it. And if you read the Federalist Papers and other documents that our founders wrote and left behind for us as their legacy, they clearly assumed that we would remain a moral nation, that we would have essentially the same views about a lot of things because we're in the same society, that we wouldn't be a country that was entertaining socialism and Marxism and communism in addition to people who are, really far on the right and almost anarchists, don't want any government at all, and then everything in between. We didn't have that range when the founders were putting this country together or in the first 100 or so years after that. This is a recent phenomenon.
Right, but what they did allow, though, they did allow the free expression of those ideas. They did not even discuss an economic system in the Constitution nor the Declaration of Independence. This was established well after the country was. So the economic system, the capitalist economic system, while it is a great system and they put it in place, it said nothing that our capitalist system of government should be completely tied to our Constitution. It's not even in there. Now, I will also say that the freedom they gave us in the First Amendment, the freedom that the government will not choose political parties, will not choose religion, will not choose to silence the press, silence the media, that we can have these free discussions of ideas in our deliberative democracy, that this is what they intended. Now, the fact that we can't have a civil discussion like you and I are having, that is what I think is problematic.
Well, it is problematic, but it's problematic because some of the ideas that are being discussed are so far and away unworkable, like, single payer, Medicare for all, things that cannot occur in our current system. It means you have to completely remake the entire financial system of this country because we can't afford to pay for that. We can't afford to pay for Medicare for all or single payer. So that it's one of those things where you're right. People are upset, but I have not ever had a time where I couldn't have a discussion with someone because I was unsure that my beliefs could work or weren't supported by facts. I never meet a liberal who can actually sit down and actually discuss how their programs or their ideas or their policies could work because they don't have a way that they could work. And so that's where some of this comes from.
Sure. Hi, my name is Doug. I can do that. So real quick. So
well, then explain how we could pay for single payer. Explain how that works. If you're Doug, you're a Democrat. How's that work?
No, I'm not. I'm an independent. I don't. The Democratic Party is a joke. Please. But here's the point. Single payer will not work in the Bernie Sanders-esque single payer. It's not going to happen. Okay? It can't. But right now, our current air quote free market system is also not working for the average American. Premiums are too high for health insurance. Even if you take away Obamacare, if you take it away, you take away the pre-existing conditions, it's really expensive to get sick. There's a lot of people going bankrupt because of medical bills in this country, and it hurts a lot of people. What we should be doing, instead of talking about it has to be one way or another, we have to find a way to meld. Look, there's certain sectors in this country that should not be left to strictly for profit. One of those is medicine. If you attach a price tag to a life, it becomes a commodity.
Yeah, but if it's not a for-profit system, then you basically give away and eliminate all of the innovation and research that we do here in this country that brings drugs to market and the innovation. And I understand what you're saying, but when you say you detach profitability from it, it takes away all of the incentive for people to create products like CT machines, which save lives.
Can I tell you how it works?
But you're making statements that are not tenable under the circumstances that you're trying to outline here.
You asked me to tell you how it works. Right now, we're spending $93 billion a year. Single payer, but fiscally, even on the heavy side, will cost us $66 billion a year. That's a $30 billion savings.
That's not the numbers that the CBO or the Heritage Foundation or Cato or any of the think tanks that have looked over every iteration of single payer. There's no way. We're talking trillions of dollars, greater than our GDP.
Either way, it's painful. Either way, there's a price tag.
But it doesn't work.
Price tag. Well, we got to find a way to get the middle.
Yeah, but it's the middle can't be a government-run system. A government-run system means that you have to have rationing. Yeah, so I understand what he's saying. He doesn't want people to go bankrupt. Neither do I. There has to be a better way, but single payer isn't it. Very interesting young man. He sounds very engaged and interesting. Nice to chat with him. When we get back, we have Bridget Van Means. This is going to be straight hot fire coming straight from Missouri. You don't want to miss it. Stay right there.
Here's Walker Wildman for Redeem Clean Laundry Products.
Not only do you get a great product and you get to obviously clean your clothes, get the stains out and use the multi-surface cleaner to clean your countertops and use the dryer sheets. You're doing all of this and the money's going to support the work of American Family Association.
Redeem Clean Laundry Products were developed by AFA supporters Len Ingram and Jim Duncan to assist in funding the mission of the American Family Association. Redeem Clean products work as well as or better than other products on the market. They're environmentally safe, biodegradable, and they're made right here in the United States.
The great thing about Redeem Clean is not only is the product great, but it goes to support a great cause, and that is the work of American Family Association.
For clean laundry and a cleaner society, it's Redeem Clean. Visit redeemclean.afastore.net.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
Anyone looking at charitable giving can see that individuals and voluntary associations are very effective. Don Eberle talks about this in his book, The Rise of Global Civil Society. He points out that during the recent disasters around the world, private voluntary organizations had the capacity to raise more funds than government. They were also able to mobilize resources and manpower with a speed and efficiency that matches, if not exceeds, the best government aid agencies could do. Private voluntary associations have always been a part of American society. When Alexis de Tocqueville toured America in the 1840s, he marveled at the tendency to form or join voluntary associations of 1,000 kinds. That is why he was optimistic about the future of this new republic. He saw that such organizations formed the bedrock of civil society.
These associations, Tocqueville wrote, were the things upon which progress towards all the rest depends. Don Eberle says that in Tocqueville's day there were 27 associations with an international focus. Today there are 40,000 such associations, with a large number of them based upon a Christian foundation. He also reports that 50 million Americans are continuously engaged as social networkers with a person or community outside of the United States. For years now, my wife and I have sponsored children in Africa and South America through groups like World Vision and Compassion International. You have probably done the same. And your church has no doubt provided you with an opportunity to visit the mission field or engage in short-term missions. These are just other examples of what Don Eberle is talking about when he says we are building community from the bottom up rather than from a bureaucratic government top down. It's exciting to see what is happening in the world. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kirby's booklet, A Biblical View on Anti-Semitism, go to viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism. Viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the program. Stacy Washington, host of Stacy on the Right here on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. It's my pleasure to welcome my friend. She's my sister. She's so many different things that I really can't articulate here, and that is because she's a pro-life warrior. And I'm not exaggerating here. I mean someone who's in the belly of the beast. She's in the lion's den on the regular, fighting on behalf of the unborn and women. If this is an issue, women, children, the unborn, all of those people are being represented here. So it's my pleasure to welcome Thrive President and Vision Leader, Bridget Van Means. Hey, Bridget, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Stacy, my sister from a different mister. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited to talk to you, although I don't like the developments. I don't like the way things are progressing, but I know God is greater, and sometimes in the battle, it doesn't look as if things are going the way you want them to, but we have to keep praying and pressing forward. I wanted you to come on to give us an update on exactly what's happening with the Planned Parenthood of St. Louis on Forest Park, and they have a health license from the Missouri Department of Health that really it should have been revoked by now. What's going on right now?
Yeah, so first of all, I think the show me state is turning into the show you state, right? We've got the whole nation with eyes on Missouri because we are closer than ever to being the first abortion clinic-free state in the entire country. It would be the first time since Roe v. Wade. So the stakes are very high over the doings down there on that sidewalk and in that clinic on Forest Parkway in St. Louis, the last standing abortion clinic in Missouri. But we know that we have to take politics off the table and we have to put women's safety first. And our governor, Governor Parsons, has done an amazing job working with the Department of Health and Senior Services to keep the politics out of it, to keep women's safety at the forefront. And no surprise to us, there have been a series of safety breaches, failures to comply with basic health statutes that other medical providers would have to provide. And then now it turns out it's breaking in the news, not just right news, but all news, that we have women leaving in ambulances, documented botched abortions. I just found out and saw in the report today that a baby was aborted at 21 weeks. In Missouri, the cap is 20 weeks.
Oh, wow.
We all know that those late-term abortions, the dismemberment procedure, is a horrific experience for the mom and obviously for the baby. And so basically what's happened is, for the first time ever, we've got Department of Health and Senior Services willing to step up for women. They work at the pleasure of the governor. We have a very pro-woman, women's advocate governor. The other thing is that the director of the Department of Health and Senior Services, Dr. Williams, people oftentimes in the mainstream media fail to mention the fact that he's a woman's advocate. People don't know and understand that he is a highly well-respected practicing OBGYN for many decades. He has set the standards for proper women's health care. So when he talks about this issue and he says that these breaches in safety are significant, he really, really knows what he's talking about. And so he's been advocating for women's health for a couple of decades. He is determining that this particular clinic is unsafe at this point, and so they have not renewed the license. They allowed it to expire, and so Planned Parenthood has dragged them into court, and so we're in the middle of a court battle now. And I know that you track with things very closely, but tomorrow is the next important date, because basically this Judge Seltzer, which if you have some praying listeners, let's lift up Judge Seltzer tonight. But Judge Seltzer has basically said, Department, you have till tomorrow to decide if you're going to give them their license or take it away. So we are now again within 24 hours or so of being the first abortion clinic-free state in the nation since Roe v. Wade.
And so Bridget just put out the call, and I want to echo it. We have a praying audience here, and what I love is when we do say let's pray about this, people will email me, they'll message on Facebook or what have you, and they'll say I'm there with you. So please don't forget this when you pray over your meals, when you're in your prayer closet, at any point. Please pray for Judge Seltzer, and also for the people who are working at the Missouri Department of Health. They're under a lot of pressure right now to cave and give in and renew this license for Planned Parenthood. And don't forget to pray for the women in that building working for Planned Parenthood, because we know Abby Johnson has taught us that they can not only come out from among them, they can come out and be fierce warriors for our side. And we want them. We want the women in the Planned Parenthood on Forest Park to become our women. We want them on our side, working on behalf of the unborn and for women, for their safety. So Bridget, let's kind of, you mentioned the ambulance visits, and this is a story that you have been right in the center of this, reporting on this and really calling people to account. This is supposed to be, we've been taught, safe, legal, and rare. This is supposed to be, you're never supposed to see an ambulance at a Planned Parenthood clinic because they're supposed to be the standard in women's health care. They get $558 million taxpayer dollars a year. How could they possibly be running what sounds to me like some kind of, death mill? How could this be?
Yeah, and so what we have is a group of people who, faithfully pray on the sidewalk and advocate for the women. And so they've been trained to document carefully the comings and goings at the clinic and high attention and alert for ambulances. And so they take pictures, they document, and what we began to see is a pretty egregious pattern of regular visits from ambulances. And before you know it, we're up to about 72 or 3 now, and that averages about 1 every 40 days, which is a significantly higher average than the clinics throughout the country. And that number has actually escalated in the last few months. And again, that seems to tie off with the department's escalating concerns, right? So you have this picture of staffing shortages, which they've talked about. Planned Parenthood is always talking about the fact that there's such a shortage of doctors. And then you have an escalated number of ambulances coming and going to the clinic. Now we have documented botched abortions. So you said safe. Well, if you're going to a doctor and every 40 days you're seeing an ambulance come and go, that doesn't sound very safe. We know it's not rare, right? There are close to 1 million children that die every year.
Yeah.
So everything's been taken off the table. We do not have rare. We do not have safe. And then what about legal? It's not legal to perform an abortion past 20 weeks, but they have documentation of at least one where the abortion was performed at 21 weeks. So it's very, very reasonable for the department. If this was any other area of medicine, Stacy,
yes,
they probably would have been shut down after one ambulance visit just to figure out what was going on, let alone this many.
And the point that you're making is so valid, because just think about all of the different things that some of the LASIK clinics over the past 20 years, as we've lived in St. Louis about 21 years. And I remember when there was one of the LASIK clinics, one of the doctors, he had some problem going on with his medical license. And they went after him like nobody's business. And this is obviously your eyes are super important. He's doing LASIK surgery, but he was put through the ringer, and his clinics had to be, they were examined. I mean, there was a lot that went on. And I remember thinking to myself, well, it's good to see that they keep up with this, because how would I know? I'm just like a regular person. And if I wanted to get eye care, LASIK, I wouldn't know anything about this except that they're keeping on top of it. And that was for LASIK, which it's invasive, but it's not nearly as invasive as an abortion. And it doesn't have nearly the rate of fatality that abortion has. And really, the other things that we never talk about, which is sometimes women come out of there, you come out alive, but you can't have any more children. Like, these are side effects of abortion in this country that don't get discussed. Now, a friend of mine, Kara Davis out of California, tagged me this morning. AP Central US tweeted out, Missouri's only abortion clinic says state-required pelvic exams at least 72 hours before an abortion are, quote, disrespectful and dehumanizing, end quote, and it won't perform them. The clinic is already in a battle with the state to maintain its license. And who's in the picture? Well, it's me and Students for Life President Reagan Barklage and Jacinda. Yeah, it's from that, just I think the week before last we were all there. Yeah. And so this picture is what they're using on this image. And it's the St. Louis AP that they're picking this story up from. So what do they mean a pelvic exam is disrespectful? Haven't we, if you've had a baby, you've had like a gazillion of those, because every time you go in, you have a pelvic exam if you're pregnant.
Correct. Well, they're literally saying that it's dehumanizing and unnecessary. Yes. Maybe to the men, they might fall for that. But we women know that every time you go to the OBGYN, you have a pelvic exam. It's like when you go to your physician and you have a cold and she says, say ah. Mm-hmm. Like it's the say ah of the OBGYN visit.
Unfortunately.
And that's how deceptive and ridiculous they are. Yes. They're just grasping at straws. So again, you have a licensed OBGYN with decades of experience who is now requiring the women to be treated with basic standard protocols of care. And so he's the one that comes in and says, yes, the woman should have a pelvic exam before you invade her with this very serious abortion procedure, of course.
Well, the big story here is that they weren't. Isn't the big story here, Bridget, that because they're now admitting that they won't do it, this means they weren't doing it. So every other woman visit you've ever had, it starts with a pelvic exam.
Yes.
If you say you don't want one, they'll tell you, well, come back to this office when you're prepared. To let us look, because we're going to look first. I've never been to the OBGYN where that didn't happen. Come on.
Have them not do it. Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't walk into the office and, the men have no idea what us women go through. But, we're laughing because it's a basic standard part of the visit. It's where everything starts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where the action.
Well, unless you're not at an OBGYN. Yeah. I mean, it's like going to the dentist and saying you're not going to let him look in your mouth. He's going to look at your mouth if you're going to the dentist. So they're admitting that they're not going to perform them. So they're basically saying before we have an invasive procedure that could result in perforated uterus, all kinds of things that can happen, we're not even going to take a look and make sure we're accurate on the gestational age, the health of the mother, the ability for her to survive the procedure. They're not even going to take a peek and see what's going on.
Right, and then the other thing, Stacy, is remember that about 20 to 25% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. So one of the reasons that the doctor should do that is they want to make sure that she's still pregnant. They don't want to put her through an unnecessary procedure or an incorrect procedure if she's miscarried. So that's one of the reasons that you do a final check right before the procedure. So again, it's all about women's safety.
I'm kind of flabbergasted at the attitude by most of the media here. And I'm talking about local media like CBS, NBC, et cetera.
Right.
They're either not covering the story or they're covering it from the perspective of, their team Planned Parenthood. And no one's talking about the safety aspect. No one's talking about whatever happened to the women. Like, we don't have a way of finding out. A woman was taken from the Planned Parenthood in an ambulance with a sheet over her, so we don't know her identity. What happened? Did she suffer complications? Was she hospitalized? Did she actually have an abortion? Was that successful? Or did she actually have a baby after that because it didn't work? Like, we don't know what happens to these women, and they're forced to stay silent because they're told that if they do speak up, it will harm the Planned Parenthood. And apparently Planned Parenthood's way more important than the women that they serve.
Apparently. Now, of course, our good friend Troy Newman out of Operation Rescue filed a lawsuit against the fire department because they were suppressing those 911 calls, and he was able to get an inventory of over 60 of the calls at the time. And, Stacy, more than half of those calls are a direct result of hemorrhaging. So that means that these girls are bleeding out in the clinic. Now, we both saw unplanned, so you know that they will go through quite a bit to deal with a hemorrhaging situation on site. So that means if they're calling an ambulance, she's having a very serious bleeding out situation. The last thing they want to do is call the ambulance. We saw that in the Unplanned movie. So more than half of those are hemorrhages. And then you see some really very sad things. In fact, the first time I read that report, probably the first two times, the tears, and we see a lot and hear a lot, but you would see things like suicidal ideation, fainting, collapsing, hysteria. It just made you feel so bad for these ladies and what they're going through behind those doors.
Well, I just want to point out to everyone that the conversation that we're having with, and if you're just tuning in, I'm chatting with my friend, Bridget Van Means. She's the vision leader and president of Thrive St. Louis. The conversation we're having, there's no animus from us towards post-abortive women or women who've made that choice. In fact, your organization will help women if they come to you and get an ultrasound from you and then they decide to go to Planned Parenthood and have an abortion, they can still come back to you and get STD testing, anything further that they might need. The relationship is begun. It's regardless of what else they do in their lives. So this is about caring for women. It's not the mantra that they keep sharing. And so I want to give you the last minute here to kind of whatever you want to share about Thrive STL or Thrive all over the country, because you guys are everywhere now. What do you have on your heart for this last minute or so?
I mean, I love that you brought up the post-abortive woman, and one of the things that, we're very proud of is that in the rare situation where once a girl, presented all of her options and she's given resources, she still has that abortion, many times she'll come back to us for aftercare. So that means that relationship we've formed with her, she does not feel judged, she feels supported, she trusts us, and she's received a quality care experience. So we love the fact that the ladies trust us, they come back to us, and we do provide post-abortive care. But of course, what we are doing is coming along with women with that Good Samaritan model. And so that's what we want to make sure people know, that we're leading with redemption.
And it's the truth. And so, don't forget, the call to prayer has been sent out. Let's pray together. This next 24 hours is crucial. We need a good ruling here. We want the Missouri miracle. We want it, and we're going to get it. And we're claiming it in the name of Jesus. Bridget, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Stacy. Talk to you soon.
Okay, talk to you soon. We'll be back with more after this. Stay there.
This is Uncommon Moments. Here's former Super Bowl winning NFL coach Tony Dungy and his wife Lauren sharing from their book Uncommon Marriage.
Sometimes I get too focused on the what ifs, and Lauren points out that if I worry myself to death about things, I might end up doing nothing.
My and Tony's philosophy about things still give great balance to our marriage. We see that some of our different perspectives come from our parents. That's one reason God brought us together, and we make good decisions when we work through things as a team.
Lauren is like her mom. Both are very strong women with a great deal of faith in God. And that's one thing we as husbands can learn about our wives. We can see strength in areas where we might need help. Remember that differences are positives in a marriage.
Tony and Lauren Dungy, authors of Uncommon Marriage, learning about lasting love and overcoming life's obstacles together. Discover more at CoachDungy.com.
Hi, this is Jim Stanley, General Manager of American Family Radio, here to tell you that change is on the air.
Excuse me, Jim. I believe the saying would be change is in the air.
Well, that's true, too. We've got some big changes coming up, and you'll hear them on the air.
Oh, right, boss. Go ahead.
As I was saying, changes are coming, and you'll hear them on the air beginning Monday, June 24th, here on American Family Radio.
So, do they affect me? I mean, are we cool here? I mean, we're cool, right?
Hi, friends. There's a new show in town on Urban Family Talk, nightly, 7 p.m. Central. Join me, C.L. Bryant, as we build the bridge to conversation throughout our great nation, the greatest nation on the face of the planet, the greatest success story the world has ever known. Nightly, the C.L. Bryant Show over Urban Family Talk, 7 p.m.
This is House Call for Health. Do you want to be healthier? Go outside more. A new study confirms what you've probably suspected, that spending more time in natural environments can improve your health and well-being. British researchers interviewed 20,000 people, and they found that you don't have to camp out for days at a time. Just 2 hours a week in a park or at the beach improves both physical and mental health. The study in the journal Scientific Reports does raise some questions, like, is being outside the reason for better health? Or is it the exercise you get from moving around in the great outdoors? And could you get the same health benefit indoors at, say, a gym? Also, since the study was done in the UK, it's not clear if the same results would be obtained in other countries. But just using common sense would dictate it's good to get outside every now and then. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health, I'm Joy Piazza, Fox News.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm going to take a different tack from beginning. We are at this point, this is not about black and white, rich and poor, blue collar, white collar. We're fighting for the heart and soul of our nation. We have a very, very special country that started with the Judeo-Christian values that allowed every single generation to become better than the last. And that has not ended. That has not stopped. Until now. We're telling our kids a little bit something different, that they don't have the opportunities that we had. I'm going to talk about some ideologies. And when I talk about them, I'm not talking about people. People change. I used to be a Democrat until I did my history and found out the misery that party brought to my race. So when I talk about these ideologies don't change, people do. We are fighting for the heart and soul of our nation against socialism, Marxism, and the evil that it has brought to us in the stealing of our history. Karl Marx said it best, the father of socialism, an atheist, anti-Semite, and a blatant racist. Yet we teach his philosophy in our school systems today. He said it, the first battleground is rewriting of our history. You steal our history, you steal our pride in our past, our appreciation for our present, and our vision for our future. And every single urban city in our country is now experiencing that loss.
Wow. So that's Burgess Owens. He was one of the individuals who testified before the House Committee on Reparations. And as you know, he's an NFL great and author. He's written a lot of books, and he's a good friend of mine. And he's been on the program a number of times. I was thinking to myself, I should call Burgess and have him come on. I'm not sure if he's still in D.C. or if he's back yet. But I listened to him talking, and we know that as a black man of his age, he's experienced a lot of different things in his life, but he believes in the beauty of America. And we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility as Americans to love the one we're with. And what do I mean by that? Well, I want you to I get really, really worked up about this subject because I've been all over the world, and I've seen how other people live. And I'm not saying that from a judgmental perspective because they're happy where they live. Most of the people I've encountered are happy where they live. Even the people I met in Saudi Arabia who live under Sharia law and are just, they are not citizens there. They have their government owns them. Those princes of that family, they own those people. But they still have a level of enjoyment in their lives, and it's what they know. But it just, when you get back here and you smell the beautiful clean air and you see the trees waving in the breeze, and there are problems. I've had problems. I have problems now. I'm not as people love to say, I don't know what it is about Pollyanna. They love to say, oh, you're so Pollyanna. I'm not. I have problems, real problems. I have them. But I can't get enough of this place after having been all over the world. And there are some places on this planet that I miss. I actually can feel it. I miss them so much because I've been there and I've loved being there. But no place compares to America. And this is where the freedom is the most. Everything here is the most. And we're so blessed here. It's so much a part of living here, the blessings that we have, that we take them for granted. And so when we have people, anyone, I don't care what political persuasion you are, any person that tries to convince you as an American, whether you're black or Asian or, American Indian, or if you're white, if someone tries to convince you that you're a victim or that you have it bad here because you're an American or that America is bad, that person is trying to steal what you have. They're trying to take the opportunity that you have as an American and steal it from you, because America is primarily an idea. And when you pervert that idea in the minds of the people who live here, that's how you take America over from within. You don't take America over by coming over here with your bombers and your jets or trying to infiltrate this country. We have too many guns. We have too many Wild Wild West cowboy boot wearing, gun toting, Bible clinging men and women and kids too for you to do that. Oh no. It's always been an insider type of a deal. And so the way you take it over is obviously, well, you could just open up the southern border and have mass migration. You could implant in the minds of America's youth for 20 years or so that America is the big bad boogeyman of the world and needs to be vanquished and that capitalism is bad. You could teach kids who've been abused or mistreated or somehow really they've had their rights violated, that the reason their rights are violated is because of God and Christianity. I mean, these are all things that the enemy would love to see happen. And so we have to be vigilant about maintaining the truth and speaking the truth and not allowing the lies to go out even for a second. That's why I cut people off on the show sometimes when they get to going and they can't stop and they're just, working on behalf of their Lord and Savior, Satan. I got to stop them because I can't let them put that stuff out there and poison even one mind. But by the same token, we got to meet them where they are on the battlefield with our swords sharpened and ready with the word of truth. We have to be ready. And so, you go to places like, in Saudi Arabia, they cut your hand off if you steal from somebody. And I'd purchased this little Flocati rug when I was there in Saudi Arabia on a tour of duty. It was a temporary tour of duty. This was the one I've talked about on the show where we had, I stayed in Khobar Towers. I was on active duty in the Air Force, and the rotation after me, my room, like he was a dorm mate. He lived across from me in the dorm, and he'd only been there for a couple of weeks. And he went over after me, and Khobar Towers was bombed, and he was one of the airmen that was killed. And I've just thought about what it was like being there, like shopping, doing whatever. And I remember I bought this rug, and the guy said, you come back and pick it up tomorrow. And so I said, sure. So then the next day, me and friends after work, we went out to eat, we ran around, we went to the gym, and then went back to our, Khobar Towers little apartment, and we were in there, and we didn't go back and get the rug. And so a couple of days after that, I'm downtown in the shopping area, walking around with some workmates, and this man runs up to me breathlessly, and he says, "Excuse me, ma'am, excuse me. Remember me, you purchased a rug for me and I need to give it to you." And I said, "Oh yeah, I'll get it from you." He said, "No, I must give it to you today. I need to give it to you. You've already paid and I must give it to you." And I said, "Oh, okay." So he said, Can you please come back by, or will you stay here? I'll go get it and bring it to you." So we walked over to his store and I picked up the rug, and it looks like a sheepskin rug, and it's small. It goes like by the side of your bed or at the foot of your bed. It's not big. So it's rolled up. And he put it into some paper, and it was in a bag, and he gave it to me. And then he was so thankful for me picking it up, like getting it from him. And when he left, I was talking to a couple of the others that I was with. I said, "Wow, he seemed like he was like deathly afraid that I wasn't going to get that rug from him." And the one of the guys I was with was like, "You know where you are. Here in this country, if you steal from someone, they cut your hand off." I said, "Yeah, but if I didn't get the rug from him, he wouldn't have stolen from me." And he was like, "Yeah, that's kind of what it is. If he takes the money, he needs to give you the item, or he could really get in big, big trouble for that." And I was like, and just in that moment thinking, because I didn't come by and pick up the rug that I purchased, this man could be like in dire straits, like his hand might not be. I couldn't believe it. But that's their country. And so every country has something about it that you're like, you guys do what? That's the nature of foreign countries. And we have some things here, obviously America's not perfect, but people are killing themselves to get in here. People are killing their own kids to get in here. People are killing other people's kids to get in here. We got to really, I feel like there's a whole lot of flippant attitude about the blessing that is America and how wonderful it is that we get to experience this. And, the Israelites in the Bible, they had many times where they were living in the land of milk and honey and, having a really, really great time. And they would get stiff-necked and start going after other gods. And then they'd get taken off into captivity, or they'd get overrun by some invader. And then they would have to come back to the realization that, we belong to God and we need to acknowledge him in all our ways. And we need to not turn to other gods. And we've been given such a reprieve here in America for so long, which is one of the reasons why, last segment's guest, Bridget Van Means, why she means so much to me because of her work on the pro-life issue here in Missouri. She just is so excellent at what she's been called to do. And her excellence reverberates outward to those around her. It's inspiring, it's activating, and it's accomplishing what she's set out to do. And I would just sincerely would have my work to be at the same kind of effectiveness, the level of effectiveness that she has in her work. And so we have to, first of all, I want to renew the call. If you're just tuning in, welcome to the show. You missed 2 great interviews, by the way. Bob Woodson was on in hour 1, and in hour 2, we had Bridget Van Means, who was just fantastic. She's the vision leader and president of Thrive St. Louis. One of the things that I want to make sure and say, if you're just tuning in, is please don't forget, please pray for that Judge Seltzer here in Missouri, who's going to make some decisions tomorrow about that. And also the people at the Missouri Department of Health, if they would stand firm and require Planned Parenthood to adhere to the same rules as the LASIK eye care centers and other outpatient clinics here in the state of Missouri. Don't give them special rules and special dispensation. They should have to follow the same exact protocols. Safety protocols should not be, Planned Parenthood shouldn't have to follow these. No, yes, they should. They more than should have to follow them. They should be, and this is just my opinion, if you work at Planned Parenthood and you know what your reputation is on the right, you should be out there talking about, actually, we go above and beyond the minimum standards set out by the Missouri Department of Health. That should be their attitude. They should be like, how can you not renew our license? Not only do we comply, but we have full transparency, and all of our physicians are available for questions. We do not permit anything untoward because we know what you guys say about us, and that's not us. But when you're working for the enemy, you don't feel like you have to go above and beyond to follow the rules. Now, do you? Oh, yeah. I know somebody's mad already. I really appreciate people who listen to the show who don't agree with what we discuss here. But I also don't want you to feel like you're going to be getting any inroads with me, explaining to me that you support abortion or you're against the Second Amendment or anything like that. Like, these are not issues where I'm in a debate zone and I need some help figuring out where I'm going. You have your ideas, and that's fine, and I appreciate you tuning in, but I'm not here to be convinced otherwise. I already know what God's word says about self-defense, about when he formed us, he knew us, about the sanctity of human life, about all of these issues. I wouldn't be sitting here if I hadn't already made up my mind. So, yeah. We did also, I teased, and I just want to give you a little bit of the details. I think maybe I did. Yeah, I did. I gave the details on the 52 countries. And so we'll have to deal with the New York Times 18 questions for the Democratic candidates. I don't think we're going to have time to get to that today. But we will. Because this is so funny. Like, when you hear these questions, you're going to think to yourself, they asked them, what? And Joe Biden was like, I'm not answering your questions, because he's just still trying to figure out who he is after 40 years. But this heckler, he was yelling at, this is a congressional hearing yesterday, and Representative Louis Gohmert, Republican from Texas, was accused of lying by this heckler. He was at the House Judiciary Committee on the Constitution, Civil Rights, and Civil Liberties, Reparations Committee. And it was the first in 12 years to examine this subject. Needlessly, nothing's going to happen. And this bill that's sponsored by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, Democrat from Texas, calls for a commission to be set up to examine the lasting impact of slavery. Hey, black folks, y'all were slaves. Y'all are still suffering from slavery. Y'all are victims. You need Democrats. And make recommendations on appropriate remedies. The legislation has been introduced 17 times in the past 3 decades, but has never been advanced. Now, Gohmert was submitting into the record a copy of an article entitled Our History on the Democratic National Committee website and wondered why it included no references to the party's platform in support of slavery 6 times between 1840 and 1860, the fact that 7 Democratic presidents owned slaves, the party's platforms that either supported segregation outright or were silent on the subject 20 times between 1868 and as recently as 1948, and the fact that 3/4 of the opposition in the House to the 1964 Civil Rights Act came from Democrats, along with 80% of the opposition from the Senate. The role the Democratic Party played in creating Jim Crow laws. And last but not least, Gohmert said, there's no reference to the fact that Birmingham, Alabama Public Safety Commissioner Bull Connor, who infamously unleashed dogs and fire hoses on civil rights protesters, was in fact both a member of the Democratic National Committee, so in leadership, and he was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. An open member, not a secret. So it's important that we know our history and not punish people today for the sins of their predecessors in the Democratic Party. And then someone yelled, "You lie," all loud. Gohmert chuckled and said, I just stated all facts. And again, we have people who are denying history. That's not helpful to our discussion. So guess who yelled out, "You lie"? We're in the last minute of the show, or else I would open it up for calls because y'all are never going to guess who it was. An activist and talk radio show host by the name of Reverend Mark Thompson. A man with the permanent tan who also calls himself a reverend yelled, "You lie," to the truth about the Democrats. All right, that's the show for today. Guess what? Back with you tomorrow. But until then, God bless from the heartland. Thanks for making your home at AFR and UrbanFamilyTalk.com.